Is this the path forward that you had anticipated?
I think so. I mean, on the surface, it looks like they have kept the engagement, 34% impressions growth, decline in ad pricing, but not a surprise given we saw the similar trend last quarter. And look, they've taken down the CapEx guide. That was the real surprise element because we saw Alphabet kind of keeping their CapEx intact, Microsoft raising their CapEx by almost 40%. So that's a real surprise to me that they're cutting costs and also lowering the CapEx. But they called out, investments in AI and paring back on the non-AI part.
Yeah, I mean, investing in AI is going to require a lot of spending, and it's unclear how much investors have priced that into the equation as well. Caroline, speaking of costs, this is a company that has made a tremendous number of job cuts and reduced expenses, and they talk this up. Is this something that Meta continues to be rewarded for?
Well, certainly. I mean, yes, the year of efficiency is what they've been rewarded for in terms of the ultimate improvement in their share price that we've seen. But remember, this is a company that on a valuation basis is still a lot cheaper than the overall NASDAQ, is a lot cheaper than Alphabet and some of the other competitors that we see at about 20 times their future earnings. What's interesting about payroll and about cutting down, look, what they're articulating here is, yes, that $4 billion of cost is coming because of severance, because of consolidation in some of their infrastructure. What's notable is they say actually payroll expenses are actually going to be evolving and perhaps growing because there's going to be more sophisticated, high-cost technical roles. This is, again, a significant move in terms of we are paying for AI talent here. We are going to be going much more into that artificial intelligence and, indeed, the metaverse space. Those people cost money, so it's interesting that they are talking about the cost base on the rise, the fact that they're meaningfully going to be seeing more operating losses in Reality Labs. But I think to Tim's point, he was starting to read out what was sort of put there in the overall statement from Mark Zuckerberg. Remember last time that he talked 6 minutes about AI and about 30 seconds on the metaverse, the way in which he puts Quest 3 at the end, and he leads with Llama 2, Threads, Reels, new AI products, and then the launch of Quest 3 this fall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am curious about the cost structure here. We should point out that while you were speaking, we did get a headline out of Alphabet. Their company actually saying that they're planning to slow development of its autonomous trucking project over at Waymo. And this kind of dovetails, Caroline, I think, with the idea that some of these big tech companies are really taking a closer look at some of the spend that they've had, particularly on these projects that are far from profitable and to a certain degree far from actually generating revenue. And it raises a lot of questions as to what are they leaning out to? I mean, Scarlett talks about this year of efficiency, but is that just an indictment that their previous years were inefficient?
Well, they were in terms of hiring, and many would admit that perhaps they weren't too exuberant about a sea shift in the way in which that we're interacting with online, the way we were purchasing online, and many saw that the beef up in overall hiring was just way exuberant at the time, and so people have been cutting back their headcount. I'm looking at a headcount over at Meta of 71,496 out of June 2023, decreasing 14% year over year. So this is a focus, but remember, in the longer term, Mandeep can speak to it, their headcount still remains elevated previous to COVID, previous to 2019. You mentioned Waymo, of course, that's exactly what a CFO like Ruth Porat was trying to do, curtail the other bets, make sure that they're being more profit-focused. And Susan Lee, who's long-term CFO for Meta, is now really in taking charge and, again, really trying to outline how they are taking restructuring charges, but really focused on paying people for higher technical talent. But she is being clear that, look, those costs are still going to rise on the bet on the metaverse, and people are going to see where are the rewards for that from a revenue perspective.
The metaverse is not paying off, Mandeep. I mean, the company says that its Reality Labs division, which is the division that houses the Quest VR headsets, operating losses will rise meaningfully year over year. At what point does Meta, I don't know, step down from this bet, this doubling down on the metaverse? Because so far, the losses are just going to pile up.
Well, so they have done that in a sense by curtailing the CapEx. Remember, last year when they were spending $30 billion on CapEx, a lot of that was going towards building the metaverse. Now it's more AI specific, and there is some overlap, but I feel they have pared back their ambitions to an extent. They can't just suddenly close that business out. I mean, and we know Apple Vision Pro launch has actually validated that market. So it may be a good thing that they still have a product out there. They could could be a distant number two, and keep building, the internet side of things, the social media apps that can run on those VR headset, and that's the play here. So I don't think investors will mind that kind of investment. At the end of the day, to me, the core question is the Blue app engagement declining. And in this print, you see 34% impressions growth, but we know the Blue app is
That's
definitely losing. Yes, and that's still half of their revenue. So how do they fill that gap? I mean, the guidance increase is great, and that means that Reels is working, WhatsApp is working. So when you model Facebook or Meta, you have to think of the revenue as a combination of all these apps.
Yeah.
Instagram is half of the revenue. We know messaging is a $10 billion run rate. Reels is a $3 to $4 billion run rate. It's the Blue app that is declining, and that is the big one to fill.